First, I noticed the silence. Not the kind that brings peace. The kind that arrives when something has already been moved, already been decided, already been taken out of your life while you were still inside it. My car was supposed to be there. Parked beside the house. A little old, a little scratched, but mine. The first thing I bought with my own money. The first thing that made me feel like my life could belong to me. And when I stepped outside that morning and saw the empty space in the driveway, I thought for one strange second that I had simply forgotten where I parked it. Then I saw the oil stain. A dark shape on the concrete. A shadow where my car had been. And I understood before anyone spoke that something was wrong. The house looked ordinary. That was the cruel part. The kitchen window was open. A kettle was boiling somewhere inside. A neighbor's dog barked once, then stopped. Everything in the world kept behaving as if mine had not just been removed from it. I went back inside slowly. Too slowly. The kind of slow that means your body has accepted the truth before your mind has finished naming it. My mother was in the kitchen. She didn't turn around when I came in. She just said, very softly, "You're up early." Her voice had that careful smoothness she used when she was hiding something from me or from herself. "Where's my car?" I asked. She kept stirring her tea. Small circles. Perfect circles. My father answered from the living room before she could. "Gone. Not sold. Not borrowed. Gone." I turned toward him. He was sitting in his chair with a newspaper folded in half, as if this were a normal morning and not the start of something that would split my life open. "What do you mean, gone?" I asked. He lowered the paper. His expression was tired in a way that looked rehearsed. Not guilty. Not sorry. Just tired enough to ask for forgiveness without ever asking. "I mean, it's been taken care of," he said. "We had to make a decision." "We?" I repeated. My mother finally turned. Her lips pressed together for a second, then relaxed into a patient line. "Sit down," she said. "No one is trying to hurt you." That sentence should have comforted me. It did not. It never does, not when it is used as a curtain over a crime. I didn't sit. I stood there in the doorway, hearing the kettle hiss, hearing my own pulse, feeling the room close in by inches. "It was outside an hour ago," I said. "My keys were on the hook. My registration was in the glove compartment. Where is it?" My father set the newspaper down carefully. Not the careful of a gentleman. The careful of a man who wants every movement to look reasonable later. "We sold it," he said. The words did not land all at once. They arrived in pieces. Sold. IT. Like a door closing in stages. I stared at him. He had the look of a man who thought the hardest part was already over. My mother set the spoon down in her cup and folded her hands. "We needed to fix some problems," she said. This was the quickest way. My mouth went dry. Quickest. For them, maybe. For me, it was just disappearance with paperwork behind it. "You sold my car," I said quietly. My father nodded once, as if I had finally arrived at the correct answer on my own. "We had to." "You had to?" My voice rose then, just a little. "Without telling me? Without asking me?" My mother's face sharpened. "You would have made it difficult," she said. There it was. Not "we were wrong." Not "we should have told you." You would have made it difficult. As if my consent had been a nuisance they had every right to bypass. I remember looking at both of them and feeling something inside me shift into place. A tiny, brutal click. The kind that happens when denial finally gives up and leaves the room. My car was paid off, I said. I pay my insurance. I pay my repairs. I pay for the gas. It is mine. My father rubbed his forehead. We know that, he said. But we're in a rough patch. A rough patch. That was another one of his phrases. A rough patch could mean anything. Bills, debt, arguments, secrets. It was a word that made collapse sound temporary. What happened? I asked. What problems? My mother looked at my father. He looked back at her. That little exchange said more than either of them was willing to say aloud. Finally, my father answered. There were debts. Your uncle called in a favor. I blinked. Called in a favor? He nodded. The loan place wanted payment. The car was an asset. An asset, I repeated. My mother's mouth tightened. Don't make this into something it isn't, she said. Something it isn't. As if the theft of a car could become a clerical misunderstanding if she spoke gently enough. I laughed once. It sounded wrong in the room. Sharp. Empty. You sold my car to pay a debt I didn't make, I said. That's what happened? No one is saying you caused it, my father said. He leaned forward now, elbows on his knees, performing seriousness. But if we don't clear certain things, everything gets worse. He paused. We did what we had to do. I looked at the empty floor where my shoes were lined up, at the tea steam rising from my mother's cup, at my father's hands folded together like he was waiting for applause. And all I could think was that they had already rehearsed this. The explanations, the sighs, the calm, the clean, smooth language that always came out whenever they needed to make my loss sound like a family sacrifice. I walked past them without answering. Out the back door. Across the porch. To the empty driveway again. The space where my car had been felt more personal now. Not just empty. Erased. Like someone had cut a shape out of the day and left the edges raw. I took out my phone and called the number on the storage slip I found in my father's drawer the day before. I almost hadn't looked at it. At the time, it had seemed too ordinary to matter. A folded receipt. A parking lot address. A name written in pen. Now I knew it mattered more than anything else in the house. A man answered on the third ring. His voice was bored, businesslike. I gave him my name. I gave him the plate number. Then I said very carefully, "Can you tell me who sold it?" There was a pause, long enough for my stomach to turn over once. Then he said, "Your father." For a second the world went still. Not quiet. Still. Like even the air had heard enough. I asked him to repeat it. He did. Same tone. Same certainty. My father. Not a mistake. Not a misunderstanding. Not a family decision. He had signed it away. He had stood at a desk and put his name where mine should have mattered. When I hung up, my hands were shaking. Not from panic. From recognition. Because now I knew this was not an accident. Not desperation. Not one bad choice made in a bad week. This was something prepared. Something hidden. Something done with enough confidence to believe I would never check. I went back inside. My parents were waiting in the kitchen now, both of them pretending not to wait. I called the lot, I said. My father looked up. My mother's face didn't move. They said you sold it, I said. They said your name was on the transfer. My father exhaled through his nose, as if I had confirmed something inconvenient and mildly annoying. Yes, he said. We needed the money quickly. No, I said. You wanted the money quickly. My mother stepped in before he could answer. Stop being dramatic. Your father is trying to protect the family. There it was again. Protect. The word that always meant someone else was losing something. I looked straight at her. That was my car. She didn't flinch. It was a car, she said. It's not as if you lost a house. A car. As if the word itself made it small enough to ignore. As if I had been overreacting about a piece of metal and glass and tires instead of mourning the first thing in my life that had ever made me feel mobile, adult, and free. I felt my throat tighten. Where is the money? I asked. My father answered too quickly. It went to debts. Some of it covered fees. Some of it covered your uncle's situation. My uncle's situation, I repeated. That's what you're calling it? My father straightened. He was in trouble. He would have lost his business. We helped where we could. I let the silence stretch then. Not because I didn't have anything to say. Because I had too much. Each sentence in my head arrived like a match in dry grass. You sold my car to save his business. My mother's face hardened. You say it like we stole from you. I stared at her. And because I was tired of the soft words, tired of the careful wording, tired of every polite disguise they had wrapped around the same act, I said, that's because you did. The room changed. You could feel it. The air getting harder. The walls listening. My father stood up slowly. His chair scraped the floor. Watch your tone, he said. That sentence. I had heard it all my life. It was never really about tone. It was about obedience. About knowing your place while the adults rearranged your future. I laughed again, but this time there was no humor in it at all. You took my car, I said. You lied to me. You used my own property to erase your mistakes. And now I'm supposed to watch my tone? My mother crossed her arms. We raised you, she said. We fed you, we clothed you, we gave you a roof. And there it was. The ledger they carried in their heads. The one where every act of parenting became a debt the child would spend a lifetime repaying. I didn't ask for that, I said quietly. My father pointed at the floor between us, as if he could pin the argument there and force it to stay put. Everything we do is for the family, he said. If you can't understand that, then you're part of the problem. Part of the problem. That was his final trick. To make resistance sound like betrayal. I looked at them both, and I realized something I had been too frightened to say out loud for years. They did not think of me as someone to protect. They thought of me as a resource. A backup plan. A soft place where their bad decisions could land without breaking anything important. My money. My car. My time. My patience. My silence. Everything that was mine had always been a little less mine than they admitted. I reached into my pocket and took out my phone. My father's eyes narrowed immediately. What are you doing? He asked. Making copies, I said. Of what? Everything. My mother stepped toward me. Don't start something you can't finish, she said. I looked at her, then at him. My voice came out low. Calm. Strangely calm. I'm already finished, I said. With pretending this is normal. My father's face changed then. Not much. Just enough. A small fracture in the mask. He understood, maybe for the first time, that I was not asking anymore. I turned and went back to my room. Locked the door. Then I sat on the bed and opened the folder I had been building for weeks without letting myself call it that. Receipts. Photos. Messages. The parking lot transfer slip. The tow record. The sale confirmation. Everything lined up now. And the worst part was that I still kept hoping for some small mistake. Some innocent explanation. Some last-second proof that my father had done this out of panic, not planning. But the papers were too neat. The signatures matched. The timeline held. He had not stumbled into taking my car. He had walked into it with purpose. That night, my mother knocked on my door twice and told me to come eat. I didn't answer. My father knocked later and said we could talk like adults in the morning. I didn't answer that either. I sat in the dark with my phone in my hand, and the evidence spread across the bed beside me. The room smelled like dust and old laundry, and the faint metallic scent of the charger cable warming under pressure. Outside, the neighborhood kept breathing. Cars moved on the road. Someone laughed down the block. A dog barked twice and stopped. And in that ordinary night, in that ordinary house, I understood that the real damage was not only the loss of the car. It was the fact that I had spent years believing these people could be trusted with the things that made me independent. The next morning, I would make another call. Then another. Then another. And before the day ended, I would learn exactly how far they had gone to fix their problems with my life. But for now, all I had was the empty driveway, the proof in my hands, and the sound of my father's voice still ringing in my head like a sentence that had tried too hard to sound justified. We had to do it. We had to do it. We had to do it. And I knew, with a clarity that felt almost merciless, that those words were only the beginning. The calls started before noon. Not from them. From me. First the insurance company. Then the title office. Then the buyer listed on the transfer paperwork. Each call made the same truth a little more solid. My father had not only sold my car, he had moved it through the kind of channels people use when they want the past to disappear cleanly. The man who bought it sounded uncomfortable the moment I introduced myself. He had already figured out that something was off. He told me my father had claimed there were family issues. He told me my father had been eager. Too eager. The kind of eager that makes people stop asking questions because the whole situation feels contaminated before it is over. When I hung up, I sat very still. The folder was open on the bed beside me. Every page was a small, clean accusation. For the first time, I did not feel panic. I felt direction. My father found me in the hallway an hour later. He had the look he wore when he had decided patience should be mistaken for authority. "You need to stop this," he said. I kept walking. He stepped in front of me. "Do you understand what you're doing to this family?" he asked. I looked at him carefully. Really looked. Not as my father. Not as the man who taught me how to hold a wrench and back a car out of a tight driveway and check the oil every month. Just a man standing in front of a doorway, trying to block the truth with his body. "You already did that," I said. His face hardened. "You're being emotional." There it was again. The little word he used whenever he wanted my certainty to sound like instability. "No," I said. "I'm being specific." He stared at me. I could see him calculating. How much to admit? How much to deny? How much longer he could keep the story standing before it cracked under its own weight? Then he said it. The sentence that finally made everything clear. "We expected you to calm down once the debt was gone." I went still. Calm down. Not understand. Not forgive. Calm down. As if this had been a tantrum all along. "That's what this was to you?" I asked. "A waiting game?" He didn't answer fast enough. And that hesitation was the answer. My mother appeared at the end of the hallway then, as if she had been listening the entire time. Her voice came out soft, almost tender. "We thought we were protecting you from the stress." Protecting me. That word again. The family spell. The sentence used to turn theft into virtue. "You took my car," I said. "You sold it without telling me. You lied to my face. And you expected me to be grateful once the debt was gone." Neither of them spoke, because there was nothing left to dress up. I turned away from them and went into the kitchen. My hands were shaking now, but not from fear, from the effort of not breaking into pieces too early. I opened my laptop and sent the first email. Then the second. Then the third. One to the buyer. One to the title office. One to a lawyer I found through a community legal clinic. The reply from the lawyer came faster than I expected. Brief. Direct. Send everything. So I did. Every receipt. Every transfer document. Every message. Every note my father had written in the storage slip. Even the photograph I had taken of the empty driveway that morning. By evening, my father knew I was serious. That changed the atmosphere in the house. Not softer. Just more dangerous. He began speaking in that controlled voice people use when they are trying not to sound threatened. My mother moved around the kitchen with sharp, clipped motions, opening cabinets harder than necessary. Neither of them apologized. Apologies would have required admitting the shape of the damage. At around 9, my father knocked on my door. Not once. Twice. "Open up," he said. I didn't move. "We can fix this without lawyers," he said. "We can make this right inside the family." Inside the family. That was where all the lies lived. I opened the door just enough to look at him. "What does right mean to you?" I asked. He looked tired then. Actually tired. Not the performance from earlier. For a second, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "We were drowning," he said. "And I made a call." "A call," I repeated. "You took something that wasn't yours." He looked away. That was the first honest thing he had done all day. When the lawyer called back, it was almost midnight. I stepped outside so my parents would not hear. The air was cold enough to sting my face. She told me the transfer looked improper. She told me the buyer may have been misled. She told me there could be a claim if I moved quickly. Her voice was measured, professional, calm. The kind of calm that only exists when the facts are finally on your side. I thanked her. Then I stood there in the dark and looked at the sky over the driveway. For the first time in years, I felt something larger than anger. I felt the beginning of distance. Not emotional distance. Practical distance. The kind that saves your life later. The next morning I packed a bag. Not everything. Only what I could carry if I had to leave quickly. Documents. A charger. A change of clothes. My passport. The last of my savings. My mother saw the bag and said, "Don't be ridiculous." I kept folding shirts. My father came into the room and said, "You're making a mistake." I zipped the bag closed. "Maybe," I said. "But it's mine to make." That sentence landed harder than anything else I had said. Because it was the truth they had spent years trying to keep from me. I left before noon. The lawyer had already told me where to go first. A temporary room. A safe address. A place where my parents could not walk in and turn guilt into a family meeting. When I reached the end of the driveway, I stopped. The space where my car had been was still empty. Still a wound in the concrete. But now I saw it differently. Not as a loss that had finished me. As proof. Proof that they had been willing to take from me and call it necessity. Proof that I had been right to doubt them. Proof that leaving was not betrayal. It was recovery. My father stood in the doorway behind me, saying my name once. Not angry. Not pleading. Just saying it like he could still call me back into the old shape of the house. I didn't turn around. Because somewhere between that empty driveway and the front gate, the truth had become simple enough to carry. They had sold my car to fix their problems. They had sold my trust first. The car was only what I noticed in the open. I kept walking. Slowly. Steadily. Not because I was fearless. Because I was finally done pretending I had to be grateful for being stolen from. And behind me, in the house I was leaving, my parents were left with something they had never planned for. Not revenge. Not forgiveness. Just a record. A trail. And a child who had finally learned that help was not the same thing as love.